Hello, welcome to another Top 10 Tuesday. So I'm Tally. I will leave all the links for the Top 10 Tuesday stuff in the description as always. And let's jump into it. So this is going to be 10 books that live rent-free in my head. It was hard to nail this down to 10 actually when I sat down and thought about it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 books that I physically own and 3 that I need to pick up at some point. A nice little mixture of genres and age ranges, and let's do it. I'm going to do a blanket statement of I want to reread all of these because I know I'm going to say about every individual one I really want to reread this. So I'm going to say it at the top now and then not say that for the rest of the video. We have The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. So this is a YA Victorian horror featuring a trans main character. So this is set in London in 1883, and in this kind of alternate timeline, the veil between the living and the dead is very thin, and those that are born with violet eyes are used to commune with the dead. They are seen as easier, they have an easier time going across the veil basically. And we follow our main character Silas, who is a violet-eyed trans man, and as society and Silas's family see him as female, they are trying to take advantage of the fact that they could bride him off for a lot of money because he has violet eyes, and it is seen as a something, you know, something that people want, and the possibility of having violet-eyed children. Silas is really interested in the other side, and he himself has communed with the other side despite the fact that apparently biological women cannot commune with the other side, but Silas is able to. However, Silas is a trans man, so that could explain a lot. Silas is interested in the human body and how it works, and dresses, like, goes undercover as himself, Silas, to be able to go in and see the demonstrations, and is learning all about the human body as a, like, a doctor kind of thing. And one day during a demonstration, Silas is kind of identity is unearthed, like, yeah, and so he is sent by his parents to a like, it's a supposed, like, finishing school that's supposed to teach him how to be a good wife, but it's that, but it is like a sanatorium as well. Whilst there, Silas obviously is forced into presenting as a female and being taught how to be a good wife, and it comes to Silas's attention that a lot of the young women that are sent there do not make it out, and as someone that can commune with the dead, he kind of takes it upon himself to try and find out what's happening. This book is utterly amazing. I have read everything by Andrew Joseph White. I have enjoyed it all. I do really love You Weren't Meant to Be Human, which is his foray into adult literature. But I think this will always be my favourite work of his, and I can't see that toppling. This just, the main character Silas just really struck a chord with me. And there's so many quotes in this book about like the fear of childbirth, and like what it is to have a womb. As a cis woman who has given birth twice, I can attest to the fact that the fears that Silas has were the fears I had, and pregnancy and giving birth did not assuage any of those fears. I still feel sick at the thought of having a womb, and all of the stuff that goes into growing a child. So this just really, really I don't know, it really meant something to me, and the book, the cover is gorgeous. Next we have The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a horror thriller, and this is and Stephen Graham Jones is an Indigenous author who writes Indigenous characters. So our main character is our main character is an Indigenous gentleman who grew up on a reservation, and he, along with his friends, I think it's the Blackfeet tribe or Blackfoot tribe, um, he and his friends one day, they kind of like, they kind of push each other into it, and they go out and they shoot an elk that's on the elders part of the reservation. So they have these hunting areas, and some of it, like, there's a border of it, some of it is just for the elders to ensure that they always have food available. And Ricky and his friends kind of wind each other up and push each other into going into the elders area and shooting an elk, and the elk turns out to be pregnant. And then we join Ricky, or well, actually we join them all, but Ricky's kind of like our main character. But there's Ricky, Gabe, Lewis, and Cassidy. We join them 10 years later. Most, if not all, have left the reservation and are like living life in various other places, and they start getting stalked, and it's very much the spirit of the elk mother and the elk baby that they whose life they took too soon. And this is so creepy and scary, and I am a huge fan of any horror that revolves around nature taking its power back and like getting its own back, and this is one of the first I read kind of featuring that or surrounding that. And this was the first book I read by Stephen Graham Jones. I've since gone on to read many more. I would list him as my all-time favourite author. He is quite a writer, and so I have a huge back catalogue to go into as well as the new releases that are coming out practically every year. So I'm really pleased I read this. It really, I think, changed my reading life, and some of the scenes in this are still pop into my head sometimes when I'm trying to go to sleep, which is just fantastic for me. Then we have a book that I tend to reread every like 2 years, and that is The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is the first book by Stuart Turton. He has written 2 more since then. I enjoyed them to various degrees, but not to the extent that I fell in love with this book. In this, we follow a man, Aidan Bell, who wakes up in the woods and has no knowledge of how he got there or where he is, and he soon discovers that he is like in a suit, and he is at a manor house, and he is there for a like annual ball, but he doesn't remember anyone, he doesn't remember who he is, and slowly he pieces together that he and slowly things kind of come to light, and he pieces together some things, and he meets a plague doctor, and the plague doctor tells him he has 7 days in which to save Evelyn Hardcastle's life, because she will die at the end of the day that he's woken up in. So he will basically have to replay that same day 7 times, and by the end he has to be able to name Evelyn's killer. However, the caveat is every day he wakes up in a different body. He can't choose the body. He will wake up in a different guest's or staff's member's body. He will have the memories from his previous days, but if he influences those bodies he's in to do something different, his memories from the previous days, what happened then, may not come true, if that makes sense. I don't know if I've explained that very well. It's very time travel-y, and I don't know, there's something about this book that just, it captured my attention and it never let go, and I've reread it multiple times, and I still get just as much enjoyment even though I know the entire arc, I know the ending. I think I still get just as much enjoyment and just as much like thrill out of it as I did the first time I read it, and I think that's quite rare. I don't tend to read thrillers very often. I find them quite boring or monotonous quite a lot of the time, so I'm very selective in the thrillers I read, and this one just really did something for me. and so it's made me a long-term fan of this book, and I will always try out his other books. As I said, varying degrees of success, but perfect. Now on to a non-fiction. It's actually the only non-fiction I think on this list, and that's The Five, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper, and it's by Hallie Rubenhold. So this is a look into all of the victims of Jack the Ripper and everything we know about their lives. Jack plays no part in this. He comes in at the very end, obviously, as the reason these women are dead. But this is not his story. He doesn't need a story told about him. He's had multiple stories. This is about the women, and each one of them are just fully rounded. Like, they were real people. They were fully fleshed people, and they get so swept to the side because everyone's just so excited in the glamour of Jack the Ripper, and they always get just written off as prostitutes, and no one cares that they died. And in a lot of the cases, and many of these women weren't even sex workers. Not that them being a sex worker makes it okay for them to have been brutally murdered, but to just write off all these women as just completely disposable is disgusting. And this book meant everything to me. It goes through all the lives of them, from like birth to death, everything that happened to them. Obviously we only know what the documents, and there's only so much you can research from time periods past. But yeah, and then right at the end there's some photos where they're relevant, and then right at the end, this is the part that really stuck with me. They have this section called A Life in Objects, and it lists all of the objects or possessions that each woman had at the time of their death. And I think it's really important to humanize the victims of the serial killers that are sensationalized. You know, I am a consumer of true crime. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I do listen to quite a few true crime podcasts. However, I always try and find the ones that really shed light on who the victims were as people. I don't think that murderers, and in particular serial killers or like spree killers or anything along those lines, deserve our attention. And with these historical things, the victims always gets put to the byside. So yeah, I just really appreciated this book. Next is one I don't physically have, and that is Pet by Quaker Emezi. This is a YA dystopian fantasy. So we follow a young child, Jam, and her best friend, Redemption, who have grown up in this kind of utopian ideal, and the town they grew up in, it's Lucille. Yeah, that they have no monsters. There are no bad things. Like, they are completely safe. And one day, Jam is looking at her mother's artwork. Her mum does like mixed media artwork, and Jam pricks their finger on a razor blade on the artwork, and it kind of brings that monster to life. And Jam becomes aware that there are still monsters out there. It's just that people have, that the general public have convinced themselves that these monsters are gone, so they no longer see the monsters. And it's all like an allegory for child sexual abuse. And this is only 200 pages long, but God, did this fucking kick me in the teeth or whatever. It's only 200 pages long, but God, did this pack a punch. And as it's YA, like the metaphors of it is so easy for a younger reading audience to understand the concept of it without needing to understand the brutal nature that it's kind of based on, if that makes sense. I think this was just so well written. There is a prequel that came out called Bitter, which follows Jam's mother, so I would very much like to read that. But pet, I still think about it to this day, especially having small kids. I'm gonna do it as just a duology because I just think they're both so amazing. I've just realised I didn't get them down, but I am not going to get them down now. And as a Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo, this was, I hadn't really read for a while for fun. It turned into more of a 3 books a year as opposed to how voraciously I read before. And when I started getting back into reading a bit more regularly, and I started going on Book Talk, Six of Crows was something that seemed like a really good place to start to try and kind of get caught up on all of the like trendy or popular books I missed during the year when I wasn't so passionately reading, you know. And this is another duology that, like, I would say it changed my brain chemistry. I cannot describe how much this book just or the duology, I just consumed it. It was just, every character was so incredibly lovable, and I just wanted the very best for them. And Leigh Bardugo just broke my heart and broke my heart and broke my heart. And the couples in it were just so, it was just so amazing to follow their relationships, and the way that I had to convince myself that because it was a YA, this was obviously an incorrect assumption and ridiculous assumption, because it was a YA, everyone was going to be safe. Yes, they were doing a heist, yes, it was dangerous, but everyone would be safe. And Leigh Bardugo pulled that rug out and was like, no, fuck you. Fuck you. I'm still angry with her over that. I then went on to read the original Shadow and Bone trilogy. It didn't do as much for me, but obviously that was written prior. I did enjoy it, but it wasn't to the same level. And I did read like The King of Scars and whatever the other one is of that, and they were enjoyable, but there's nothing like, they don't hold my heart in the same way that a Six of Crows duology did. Now I have one that I rarely see people talking about, and it's an absolute travesty. It's an absolute shame, and that is Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. I need Elizabeth Thomas to write another book. Do you know how many times I've written out a draft email to to Elizabeth Thomas's agent to ask if there's any more books in the works, and then been like, no, that's just rude. Maybe I should do it though, because this came out in like 2020 or something. 2020. It's been 5 years. 6 years. It's been 6 years. Elizabeth Thomas has nothing on their social media except for like when this was coming out. I need more. This book just... This is a queer dark academia book, and it's set in this elite educational place, Catherine House. And Catherine House itself is kind of sentient, and it's set across, we dip in and out across the 3 years that you're at Catherine House. We're following Inez, and when you're there you can have no access to the outside world. You can't watch TV, you can't go on social media, you can't have a phone, you can't read like modern books. You are completely enmeshed in your studies here. You pick your specialist subject and you put everything into it. And the mystery of this was absolutely thrilling, and this is like very much a thing that I enjoy in my books, which I kind of describe as plotless but high on vibes. This one was high on atmosphere, and I love that in a book, and I want more people to pick this up because I really feel like there was a big audience out there for this book, but it just wasn't picked up. But for me, this was a 5-star. I absolutely adored it. I adored all the characters, and well, it's been like 6 years. I should definitely reread this. I know I said I wasn't going to say that, but I really should for this one. And I just need Elizabeth Thomas to write more, because the writing style was so absolutely perfect. Please. Apologies if it's a bit dark when the camera's moved. This is actually a few hours later that I'm finishing this. So next we have, the only middle grade on this list, but this is my Ride or Die series, okay? Beyond the Deep Woods, this is the Edge Chronicles series, and this is by Paul Stewart and Chris Riddell. This is the most wonderful middle grade fantasy series, and I literally could not wait to introduce my children to this. My 8-year-old has now started reading it. He's read this one, he's on the second one. I introduced him to this world. He was thoroughly excited and luckily loved it. But yeah, this is set in a fantasy world. It is a little, I would say, it needs to be the older side of middle grade. I mean, I started reading it with my son at 7. There are some scary parts in here, but he was okay with it. But obviously each child is different. Anyway, so this is multiple trilogies that are like in one series. So this was the first one that was ever released. However, chronologically, a trilogy was released as a prequel to this. In this one in particular, we follow Twig, who leaves the he's a human raised by trolls. Wait, was it wood trolls? Yeah, specifically wood trolls, and he's always felt like an outsider for obvious reasons. He doesn't really fit in, and one day he leaves the path which he has had drilled in to his head, same as all wood troll children. You do not leave the path. One day he leaves the path. He cannot find his way back. He goes on an epic adventure, and we meet so many different types of creatures along the way, some good, some bad, some morally grey. Oh, and each book is, you know, it's that essence of finding oneself, finding home, learning what true love is, and yeah, just this series just means the world to me. I cannot wait to give it a reread and just fully immerse myself in it. I know that I have had middle grade reading vlogs before, because this is a series that I intend on reading through on my channel at some point, possibly when I finish like Zodiac Academy or something. But yeah, I absolutely adore this series. If you have kids or if you enjoy middle grade, I really recommend picking this up. Now back to some adult books. We have The Changeling by Victor LaValle. This is a horror book, folklore obviously featuring a changeling. So we follow Apollo, whose wife, him and his wife, it like follows the story of how they meet, they fall in love, they get married, and then I mean that's just like the first 50 pages, and then she falls pregnant and she gives birth. However, when she's born, she changes and she starts saying that baby isn't ours, that baby has been replaced. You know the story of the changeling. And he wants to support her as well as he can, but he also is a new father to a newborn, and he has to prioritize that child's life and that child's needs. And this is such a brutal horror. I love horror surrounding motherhood, and particularly surrounding like the birth era of motherhood, and I think it's not very common that we get to see black men in the role of caregiver and really putting their love for their children on the line, or at least in the media that I consume. It's very possible that I need to branch out a lot more. No, it's not possible, I do need to branch out a lot more. But I also feel like that kind of seeing a softer black man is not something that is as readily available. So I really appreciate that in this book, and the lengths he's willing to go to protect his child and his wife is just absolutely amazing. And I think about this all the time, which is the point of this this list. So if you enjoy horror and you've not yet picked this up, particularly if you enjoy a little bit of folk horror, this is well worth your time. And then finally we have Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This was the first Delilah S. Dawson book I read. It's only around 200 pages. I think it's technically a novella, and it's a queer horror thriller. And this, it got me, guys. It really got me. We follow Rose, who has left her partner, got fired or started a new job. I can't remember if it's a divorce. Anyway, she's basically moved cross country. She's starting afresh, and she's trying to live like her perfect Pinterest cozy life. and she decides to take herself off to a local farmer's market. And when she's there, she gets drawn to a stall there that is run by Ash. And Ash is very beautiful, really captures Rosie's attention. But Ash is also very secretive and doesn't like to give Rosemary much in terms of who Ash is as a person. However, Rosemary is quite determined that she believes that her and Ash have a connection, and they do end up going on a date or two. And there's lots of warning signs very early on, and even as I was reading it, I was like, if Ash was a male, I would be picking up on his warning signs. But I think because she was female, I was like to myself, no, we're just misunderstanding the situation. At no point would I admit to myself what it was, even though it's so blatantly obvious. And when I got to the end, I just sat there for a moment reflecting. I was like, if the love interest had been a man, I would have been screaming at Rosemary, get out there, get out there. Why? Because Ash was a woman, was I like, I'm sure we're just misunderstanding something. And I don't know what that says about me. I don't know. I'm not a therapist. I don't have the money to see a therapist. I can't tell you what that says about me. I know it says something about me. But yeah, this really caught me. And I've read one more book by Delilah S. Dawson since. I've read Guillotine. I would like to read the rest of their back catalogue. I do wonder, I've watched some YouTubers go down like a Delilah S. Dawson rabbit hole, and I do wonder, it seems like the general consensus seems to be the first book by this author is your favourite, and I wonder if that is true for everyone. So please let me know if you have read any Delilah S. Dawson, or rather if you've read more than one. Was the first one you read your favourite? Let me know. But yeah, I often think about this book. That's the whole point. These are 10 books that I do think about so often, and 10 books that could all do with a reread, I am quite certain. Let me know any book that really sticks in your head rent free, is like just there getting up in your business even though there's no room for them to be there. Let me know in the comments. If you don't have a book to suggest whilst you're down there, just leave me a flower emoji for Bloom. Consider liking, subscribing, that would really help me in the algorithm, and I'll see you soon for another video. Thank you for spending time with me today, friends. Bye.